What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be discussing what would have been round 5 Port Adelaide versus Collingwood. We're going to throw it back like we have done the last couple of weeks, looking at with North Melbourne. We looked at Paul Stewart's great goal to win the game. Last week we looked at Port Adelaide's incredible comeback from 41 points down against the Eagles. This week, since we're supposed to be versing the Pies, I thought there was many options to choose from. To throw it back and have a look at one of the great games we've had, many from the early 2000s, a couple of those early on with the Teal Guernsey saga. There was a game in 2007 in the wet at the MCG. Obviously the final against the Pies at the G in 2013. A couple of other great games that we've had as well. But one that stands out for me, that is probably Port Adelaide's most emotional game that we've been invested in and played in our AFL era, to be precise. It was 2015, it was round 15 against Collingwood, obviously. It was a Thursday night game. It was the week after the tragic passing of Phil Walsh. Now obviously we played Sydney the week before on the Thursday night, the day before Phil unfortunately passed away. And it was something that going into this game, it was very difficult for us fans because Phil's involvement with Port Adelaide through the early 2000s, he was there for 10 years and then went off to West Coast and came back for one more year before going on to be the Adelaide Crows senior coach. He did make a massive impact in 2014. And it certainly did deliver us to the prelim final against Hawthorn. He had an impact on so many players that were currently playing, and also some past players as well, obviously the Corns brothers and so forth. But this game was Thursday night. It was broadcasted by Channel 7. It was an emotional game. There was plenty riding on it, not only with the circumstances that happened in that past week, but also for Port Adelaide's season. Going into the game 5-8, well, basically out of the finals race, really needing something to get across the line, and it was just one of those games where the emotion overrid any sort of momentum that both teams had going into the season. Collingwood were on a 2-game losing streak, but they were still in the top 4 and they were about to hit on to go on to play in finals, most likely if they won this game, and Port Adelaide had to keep their season alive. And there was a lot of rain predicted to come through later that night. It just we weren't sure when. But after a fast start in the first quarter by Port Adelaide kicking 4 goals to 1, it was then Collingwood who came back in the rain. It was a tough, tight contest. There was plenty of aggro. The Collingwood players were giving it to the Port fans. The 45,000 Port fans that were there that night, braving those difficult conditions. It was an emotional game. You could feel it in the atmosphere. Port fans wanted to win. If there was one game that season that we had to win, we needed to win, it was that game, and we did it. Now, to get there, it was quite difficult. The third quarter is what stands out for me. We kicked 3 goals. We needed to get a bit of a lead. Within the first 5 minutes of the last quarter, Chad Wingard snaps it from the boundary line to put Port Adelaide in a very comfortable lead. Now, in those conditions, 20 points is a very comfortable lead, you'd assume, and you'd hope to hold on. I don't think for much of that last quarter we saw anything close to being a goal from Port. It was hardly down at their end. Collingwood just kept pressing and pressing and pressing. It was the efforts of Matthew Broadbent taking a mark one-on-one against Jamie Elliott that almost solidified the game. And then it was Brendan Archie takes the mark in the pack in those horrid conditions, grabs it, puts it down the line. Players keep moving the ball forward with 10 seconds to go. It's very unlikely Collingwood to goal. Not everyone knew that in the crowd though, and when the ball was coming around the other end, Collingwood were moving it forward. It almost seemed like they were ready to kick a goal. Best sound you'll ever hear at the end of the game is a siren when you're in front. And that's exactly what happened.
Oh, Elliot Nelly, no mark, good win. What a night, what a win. Their season is still alive.
Throughout the whole night, it was pure emotion. Fans were tearing up, the raw energy that was from the crowd itself, let alone from players, coaches, and broadcasters. They broadcasted a tribute before the game. It was a minute silence to celebrate the life of Phil Walsh. But then it was after the game, with the big emotional tribute that we had, with Birds of Tokyo, with lanterns playing in the background, showcasing the life of Phil Walsh. It was purely just, I reckon it's the most emotional game time I've been a part of for a community that is the AFL, for a community that is Port Adelaide, and everyone that was involved that night. That was a very emotional time, and I know still to this day, I look back on that game and you could just, it's actually one of our better wins we've ever played. It's one of the best wins Port Adelaide's had, considering what was going on around at the time. And we were a young team building, we had some inexperienced players, some injuries as well, and it was just a wonderful victory for Port Adelaide. Well, there you have it, Port fans. That is a throwback of round 5 for Port Adelaide and Collingwood. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of that game itself, and if you have any other memories of that night or any other specific Collingwood Port Adelaide game that you think is a memorable one in itself. There's plenty of others to choose from, that's for sure, but this one stood out for me, and I reckon it's Port Adelaide's most emotional game we've ever played. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new, for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content and AFL Evolution content coming your way as well. My name is Anthony, and as always, can't ThePear.